Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for July 15th, 2020. A relatively light agenda today, so we'll get started with approval of the minutes from our last meeting on July 8th, 2020. The vote begins with Commissioner Richard.
I vote aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
I vote aye. The meeting minutes are approved. Mr. Secretary, the consent agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, there are 13 items on today's consent agenda. Items 1 through 3 are interconnection agreement amendments, and the names of the companies appear on today's published agenda. Item number 4 is a notification of reorganization from Windstream Holdings, Inc. Item number 5 is the request of Volunteer Energy Services, Inc. to cancel its electricity and gas supplier license. Item number 6 is the application of K&K Enterprises of Illinois, Inc., DBA K&K Energy, for a license to supply natural gas or natural gas supply services in Maryland. And item 7 is another application from K&K Energy for a license to supply electricity or electric generation services in Maryland. Item number 8 is the application of Pure Energy USA Maryland, LLC, for a license to supply electricity or electric generation services in Maryland. Item number 9 is the application of Avangrid Renewables LLC for certification of the Otter Creek Wind Farm as a renewable energy facility. Item number 10 is the application of Bridget Kennedy for certification of a residential geothermal heating and cooling renewable energy facility. Items 11 through 13 are revised standard offer service tariff pages for Type 2 customers for Delmarva Power and Light, Pepco, and Potomac Edison, respectively.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions or comments on these items? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 9 is an application for a renewable energy facility representing 150 megawatts of production. It's located in Ransom, Illinois. As the commissioners are aware, Mr. Chairman, Maryland imports over 44% of its electricity, and we have very large constraints for that importation, which we pay a very high premium for. And the renewable portfolio standard, my understanding of it was at least in part developed to incentivize the development of renewable generating infrastructure within the state of Maryland. In most instances, it does not. 80% of our renewable portfolio standard RECs are purchased from out of state on average, maybe between 75 and 85%, depending on the year. But the vast majority are purchased out of state. This particular application, although on the consent agenda, will send many tens of millions of dollars out of Maryland's economy and into Illinois' economy. And we will continue to pay higher premiums because of the emission constraints. And so I would like to reiterate my request from last week that technical staff and OGC provide me with information regarding how we may change this. Can we do a carve out? What are potential options? For 4 years, I've been watching this, actually longer than that, because when I was in the legislature, I watched it too. How can we change this? We carve out solar, and therefore we have a robust in-state solar portfolio mixture, but wind we do not, and I'd like to see how to fix this. And this is a classic example of what's wrong with our system and how we send monies out of our economy and make our customers, our citizens, pay a higher premium due to importation through constraints in the transmission system. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for listening, and I hope staff and OGC will be forthcoming in the near future on some information from me so I can use it as a basis to discuss with the rest of the commissioners how we can proceed to fix this thing.
Thank you. With that, seeing no additional commissioners asking to be recognized, I will move that with respect to item numbers 1, 2, and 3, that we approve the interconnection agreement amendment 10 days following a 30-day comment period unless adverse comments are filed. With respect to item number 4, that we note the reorganization. With respect to item number 5, that we approve the cancellation request. With respect to items 6 and 7, that we grant K&K Enterprises of Illinois, Incorporated, doing business as K&K Energy, a license to operate as a natural gas supplier with respect to item 6, and as an electric supplier with respect to item number 7 in Maryland, limited to broker services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff. That we cancel the gas supplier license with respect to item number 6 and the electric supplier license with respect to item number 7 of MSDS Consultant Services, LLC. That we direct the company to provide marketing materials specific to its Maryland operations to the commission staff 30 days prior to utilization of the materials in Maryland. That we direct K&K Enterprises of Illinois, Incorporated, doing business as K&K Energy, to file notice with the commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in the application. And that we inform the companies that the existing bond of MSDS Consultant Services, LLC, may be immediately canceled upon grant of the license for K&K Enterprises of Illinois, Incorporated, doing business as K&K Energy. With respect to item number 8, that we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff, and direct the company to file notice with the commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in the application. With respect to item number 9, that we approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility ID certification number, that we direct the applicant to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of certification, and direct the applicant to notify the commission within 30 days if the information on which the application is based should change. With respect to item number 10, that we approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility certification number, that we direct Ms. Kennedy to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of certification and file a geothermal and thermal biomass generation report with the commission within 1 week of each recording of generation data with GATS of RECs created, and direct the company, Ms. Kennedy, to file notice with the commission within 30 days of any change to the information in the application. With respect to items number 11 through 13, that we accept the revised tariff pages for filing with an effective date of September 1st, 2020. And with that, the vote begins with Commissioner Richard.
I vote aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
I too vote aye. The motions are approved. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, item number 14 on today's administrative agenda is the request of the Potomac Edison Company for a waiver of the CPCN requirement under Public Utilities Article Section 7207B41 for the modification of the heights of 4 poles associated with the existing Ringgold transmission line. On this item from staff, we have Christopher Lowe and Michael Dean. For the company, Jeffrey Trout and Jeff Irons, and from PPRP, Sandra McLemore.
Thank you. Good morning, Commission staff.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, Christopher staff. This item concerns a request from the Potomac Edison Company for a certificate of public convenience and necessity waiver pursuant to Public Utilities Article Section 7-07B4I. PUA Section 7-07 requires an electric company to obtain a CPCN prior to commencing construction of an overhead transmission line that is designed to carry a voltage in excess of 96,000 volts. However, exceptions are outlined within our article. PUA Section 7-07B4I further states that the Commission shall waive the CPCN requirement should it find that construction does not require the company to obtain new property or rights of way through eminent domain, or require larger or higher structures to accommodate increased voltage or larger conductors. Potomac Edison's mandatory waiver request is for increasing the height of 4 poles associated with the existing Ringgold-Catoctin transmission line along a 9.8-mile stretch between Ringgold Substation and Catoctin Substation in Washington and Frederick Counties, Maryland. This waiver request relates to the CPCN of the Ringgold-Catoctin Rebuild Project in case number 9470, which was granted and contingent upon the approval of the Transverse Project in case numbers 9471. After refining the survey of the structures and engineering study, Potomac Edison identified 4 poles in 2 locations as necessarily to increase the final pole height in order to meet the company's design requirements for vertical clearance. In its filing, Potomac Edison states that the work will be performed on property already subject to easements held by the company. There will be no increase in the voltage or the size of any conductor. Therefore, the project meets the requirements for a mandatory waiver. Potomac Edison expects to commence the work associated with these 2 changes in November 2020, pending the outcome of the regulatory approval of a settlement in the TransSource proceeding before the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. By raising the height of the pole structure slightly, the increased vertical clearance will eliminate the safety and clearance concerns of the line. And based on staff's review of the filing and discovery responses from the company, staff concludes that completion of this work is needed to maintain the reliability of the system, and that statutory requirements under PUA Section 7-207B4I for obtaining a waiver of the CPCN requirement have been met. Staff recommends that the Commission grant a mandatory waiver of the CPCN requirement pursuant to PUA Section 7-207B4I to modify the height of 4 poles associated with existing Ringo contact line.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Counsel for the power plant research project.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Sandra McLemore on behalf of the Power Plant Research Program. As noted in Mr. Kelly's correspondence filed July 19th, PPRP agrees with staff and we are in support of the waiver. If you have any questions, I will be happy to try to respond, but I have nothing else to say unless you have questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. Counsel for the
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Jeffrey Trout on behalf of the Potomac Edison Company. We agree with staff's analysis. We appreciate the support for our request expressed by PPRP, and we are available to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Trout. Do commissioners have questions of the parties? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Mr. Trout, what happens to this work if the Pennsylvania Commission does not approve the TransSource projects?
If the TransSource projects ultimately are not approved, none of the work that the Commission authorized in the original CPCN or in this waiver will occur.
But then, so the reason I'm asking the question, but you're still being in violation of your vertical clearance standards. And we're being told by staff that this is necessary for reliability. I'm confused.
Okay, we would not be, because if the work is not performed, the line will remain a 138 kV line. There are different clearances depending on the voltage.
I didn't think the voltage was increasing for this waiver.
The waiver does not change the voltage. The original CPCN that the Commission granted a year and a half ago, which we're still waiting to act on because it's conditioned on TransSource getting all of its approvals, increases the voltage of the Ringo-Catoctin line from 138 kV to 230 kV.
Okay, but that didn't get a waiver, or did get a waiver?
That got a full CPCN
okay, very
approval.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Any additional questions from the commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richard.
Mike Richard. Yeah. I was interested to know, is there a cost estimate on this project? And is this a project that was anticipated did it go into the overall TransSource project?
There is a cost associated with rebuilding this line. I don't have, well, actually, I have the original application documents here somewhere. I could probably find that. My memory is that it was somewhere in the range of $70 to $80 million. But if you need a more precise number, I could try to find that right now. Your second question, Commissioner, which I think is the point you're concerned about, I do not understand TransSource to have included the costs of our rebuild in their cost estimates, certainly not in their cost estimates that they would have filed with respect to getting a CPCN in Maryland or their Maryland or Pennsylvania. I'm less certain as to what, if any, cost they attributed to the need to do this rebuild in their original presentations to PJM. I do not understand us to have been asked to give them costs. So if they did costs, they would have been costs that they estimated themselves. And you've now pushed me to the very edge of my understanding of what TransSource did and did not do.
Okay, I just was trying to understand all the calculations that went into this being the bigger project being an economic, market efficiency project, and I was just curious about these specific costs. One, did they get into the overall calculation, and two, is what we're considering today an additional cost on top of everything else? So what we're talking about today was anticipated to be.
I can't address those, actually. I apologize. I can give you better information there. With respect to PJM's analysis, I would assume, and it's an assumption, but I think it's a pretty good assumption, that PJM would have needed some sort of overall cost information in order to conclude that this was of economic benefit. But whether they got data from us or from TransSource, and therefore whether the data is the same as the data that the Maryland Commission saw with respect to our original CPCN application, that I cannot say, because I know that I and the folks I worked with on this project did not provide that data to PJM with respect to the TransSource approvals. Your second question, which is the incremental costs associated with raising these 4 poles, are they calculated and considered by PJM? I would assume that they are not, but I can tell you, because I did ask the question of our people whether this had any material impact on the overall cost of the project. The answer was no. We can raise the poles over the highway without materially increasing the costs, and I think there may even be some savings in excavation costs and the like associated with using the higher poles and therefore avoiding the slope in the other place where we're raising the poles. So there is no material addition to the cost of the TransSource, the overall TransSource undertaking that would result from the granting of this mandatory waiver request today.
Okay. All right. This is pretty much water for the decision we've made here in Maryland. But again, it just kind of goes to the question of how, when we're looking at these market efficiency projects, are in fact all the costs really known when we make this calculation to determine this market efficiency project. But in any case, again, this is water under the bridge. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Richard. Seeing no additional questions, I move that we grant Potomac Edison their request for a waiver of a CPCN under Public Utilities Article, section number 7207B4I, to modify the height of 4 poles associated with the existing Ringgold to Catoctin transmission line. The vote begins with Commissioner Richard.
I vote aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
I too vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 15 on today's agenda was deferred from the July 8 agenda. It consists of revisions to Tank Electric Cooperative Inc.'s supplier coordination tariff. For this item, for staff, we have David Hoppick and Michael Dean. For the company, Sarah Dahl, Trump, Bill Darden, and Tiffany Troutman. For OPC, Jacob Oslander.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Hopkins.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We could hear you good.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. David Hoppick on behalf of staff. Choptank Electric Cooperative has filed extensive revisions to its electricity supplier coordination tariff to reflect and comply with COMAR, including Rulemaking 54 or RM 54 and Cooperative Consolidated Billing, to reflect Choptank's settlement process with PJM and other updates. Staff filed its public and confidential comments on July 1st, 2020, supporting some, but not all, of the proposed edits to the tariff. Since then, staff and Choptank have reached agreement on most of the outstanding items from staff's initial comments. Staff filed supplemental comments on July 13th, 2020, noting two remaining sections with disagreement, Section 8.2 load profiles and Section 12.4.2 purchase of electric supplier receivables subpart F. Choptank has agreed to staff's proposed edit to Section 12.4.2 purchase of electric supplier receivables subpart F. Staff and Choptank have not achieved consensus on Choptank's second proposed edit to Section 8.2 load profiles, which removes the requirement to receive Commission approval for changes in load profile methodologies. All other utilities with electric retail choice in Maryland retain this requirement in their tariff, and staff notes that load profile methodologies, which separate load capacity and transmission obligations with PJM between retail choice and SOS, determine costs for suppliers. Staff believes that Commission approval for changes in load profile methodologies is necessary to maintain fairness. Additionally, staff would like to report that Choptank has agreed to begin submitting electric choice enrollment reports effective in September. As noted in staff's comments, staff request that Choptank commit to offering bill-ready cooperative consolidated billing in the future to facilitate market entry for all suppliers participating in choice in other Maryland electric utility service territories. Staff thanks Choptank for its effort to work with staff on this tariff. Staff recommends that the Commission accept Choptank's revised electricity supplier coordination tariff as revised by staff with an effective date of July 28, 2020, and direct Choptank to file clean copies of the tariff. I am now available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hoppick. We'll now turn to counsel for Maryland's Office of People's Counsel.
Mr. Chairman, Jacob Auslander on behalf of OPC. We filed a brief letter in support of staff's revised version of the supplier coordination tariff, and we don't really have anything more to add than the comments that we made in that letter, that we support staff's revisions for the reasons that staff laid out in its book sheets. So we don't really have anything more to add than what we've already filed.
Thank you, Mr. Auslander. Representative from the utility.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Tiffany Troutman, Manager of Finance and Regulatory Affairs for Choptank Electric Cooperative. Also present is Sarah Dahl, General Counsel for Choptank, and Bill Darden, Solutions Director for Rubicon Associates. Choptank sent its draft supplier tariff to staff on February 3rd, and after several data requests, officially filed the tariff May 1st, which was followed by several more data requests. The tariff was revised to meet COMAR requirements. Additionally, the goal of our project manager was to use already approved language, mainly SMECO's tariff, in an effort to make the approval process efficient for staff and commissioners. After review of staff's initial buck sheet, Choptank reached out to staff to reconcile the edits proposed. One item remains, where PAC staff and Chop Tank did not reach a consensus before today, which is section 8.2 load profile. Chop Tank believes this section was filed in accordance with COMAR, and staff has confirmed that load profiling methodology is not codified. The argument is that staff believes a change in load profiling methodology requires approval by the PSC. Staff has provided Chop Tank with a document filed by the Commission August 1999 stating this as support for the position. Additionally, Mr. Hoppick is referring to the Working Group Report 1999 Model Tariff, which there is no rulemaking on this topic in 20 years, and there has been a lot of deviation from the 1999 Model Tariff. If the logic Mr. Hoppick is using is accepted regarding Section 8.2, that would imply there can be no deviation from the 1999 Model Tariff. Chop Tank requests the Commission to approve Section 8.2 as filed May 1st. I will turn it over to Bill Darden from Rubicon for further information, and members of Chop Tank staff as well as Rubicon are available for questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Troutman, was Mr. Rubicon going to make a statement?
Yes, Chairman, he is.
Hello?
Hi, sir, you may proceed.
Oh, thank you. I've been working with Chop Tank for quite some time as a program manager and consultant on the implementation of customer choice for Chop Tank. And my experience is mainly, my experience in energy is mainly in the on the supplier side. So I have a kind of a different viewpoint of the profiling and so forth. So I've worked with Constellation, Hess, and a number of the largest retail suppliers in the country, and dealt with every single deregulated market that there is. And it was my job to keep all these profiles, keep all the profiles straight among, you know, almost 100 different utilities across New England, PJM, and so forth. And I realized that each utility has a different method, and you know, some are very, very simple and mundane, like providing your historical load for the various customer classes, whereas some are ultra complex, using weather response functions and so forth. So the profiles established Chop Tank are a weather-based profiling methodology, which would be rarely, if ever, updated. But from my viewpoint as a, you know, what a supplier would think is that they really just need to know what the methodology is. So as long as they know what the methodology is, that's fine with the supplier. And additionally, I would just say that I looked at some other co-ops for sort of precedence as well. And the Delaware co-op, which was recently underwent the same transition, as well as New Hampshire Electric Co-op is just another example. Neither of them have any statement about requiring approval from the commission. And I'm just wondering what the value of doing that is. So I would sort of propose that if by a very remote chance the load profiles at Chop Tank are changed, that it doesn't necessarily require approval from the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Darden. I think I called you Mr. Rubicon. You're with Rubicon.
That's right.
Thank you. Ms. Troutman, anything further?
Nothing further from Chop Tank. We're available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Well, I appreciate the hard work that's been done by both Commission staff and Chop Tank in thoroughly making changes to this supplier coordination tariff. In some sense, it's a miracle that we're only down to one contested issue at this point, Section 8.2, the load allocation methodology. Now, Mr. Darden, you just mentioned that it's rarely updated in defense of your position that the Commission need not approve the methodology. But if it's rarely updated and we would only need to approve it once, what is the true burden on the utility?
Well, it's I would say minimal unless it takes a long time for the a change to go through the approval process. I was kind of curious as to what the approval process of changing a load profile methodology entails, say for any other Maryland utilities.
Let me stop you there, and I'll ask Mr. Hoppick to respond to that. I recognize that staff's argument, it's a matter of equity and fairness to have all of our utilities on the same page seeking approval of the methodology. But Mr. Hoppick, is it minimal in terms of a filing with the commission for approval?
I looked for prior filings on this specific topic, and the only one I found dates from 2005, and it was related to a Comcast profile for BGE, in which staff actually recommended that no action be taken because there wasn't a change in methodology, it was just a change in input. So I have not found a specific example of this, so I don't know that I have a solid answer on this, but I assume it would go through the similar review that staff conducts for other changes to things that affect costs for electricity suppliers, and we would look at it primarily in terms of is it fair to both parties, and is it producing the best results with kind of a reasonable amount of effort.
Thank you. Well, between you and Mr. Darden, I am comfortable with the position. Since these methodologies are rarely updated, it doesn't seem like it would be a tremendous burden for the utility to file them for approval. I have no further questions. Do commissioners have questions? Commissioner Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hoppick, does the language say that it has to be approved or that a change has to be approved? I've got two screens going and I just, too many things up here.
Let me open, I've got the tariff printed, so give me a moment. It says the load profiling methodology may be updated on a periodic basis throughout the duration of the supplier coordination agreement. And then the current language is subject to Public Service Commission approval. So they would need to have approval to change the methodology itself. And what they're proposing to delete is subject to Public Service Commission approval.
That's what I thought. So, Mr. Darden, I'm a little confused because what your reason for deleting the language was that what you really, as long as the supplier knows what the method is, that's what's important. So if Chop Tank were to change it and not need a commission approval, then how would suppliers know it was being changed?
Oh no, I believe that Chop Tank should notify suppliers. In fact, that to me is the key. The suppliers need to know the methodology of profiling because they're obviously trying to match what the utility, in this case Chop Tank, is doing. So I totally agree that the supplier does need to know the methodology and all the variables if their methodology uses variables. I'm just questioning the added value of having commission approval of a change.
Okay. And you're not aware that this commission has held up approval for extended periods of time or anything like that?
I have no experience with that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I would love to know if there is any history of the other Maryland co-ops changing their methodology.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am comfortable with the staff language. I don't think it's too much burden for Chop Tank.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Troutman, I have maybe a question or two for you. So my first question is, will the public utility article with regard to supplier choice still apply to Chop Tank should Chop Tank members decide to become member regulated?
Commissioner O'Donnell, I'm going to send that question over to Sarah Dahl to answer.
Tiffany, good morning, Commissioner O'Donnell. The short answer is yes. This section of the public utilities article related to customer choice would be applicable to a member regulated cooperative.
Okay, so if you change your rates, because Public Utility Article 4-203A says you have to obtain commission approval to change your rate. So if you change your rates, will you still, will 4-203 alpha still apply?
Referring to changing the rates, meaning change the supplier choice tariff?
So let me pull up 4-203 alpha and I'll read it to you. 4-203 alpha of the Public Utilities article of the Maryland Annotated Code, PUA, says, quote, a public service company may not establish a new rate or change in rate unless the public service company, one, provides the commission notice of the new rate or change in rate at least 30 days before the new rate is established or the current rate is changed, and two, publishes new rate or change in rate in accordance with 4-202 of this subtitle during the entire 30-day notice period and new schedules and plainly indicated amendments to existing schedules. And so my question is, will that section of the public utility article still apply if you become member regulated?
No, it will not. When you look at the final enrolled version of House Bill 999, pages 10 and 11 list the sections of the public utilities article that a member regulated cooperative would remain subject to. There are 13 items on that list, and the section that you named is not on that list.
So doesn't this whole argument become moot with regard to methodologies?
Well, it's a good question. I think that because Chop Tank is still in the middle of our member regulation vote, and we do not know whether we will in fact become member regulated when that vote concludes on August 13th. We have not fully established or determined the way that the supplier choice tariff would be impacted by member regulation. So specifically, we know that the sections of the public utilities article that relate to customer choice, supplier choice, would continue to apply to regulated cooperative, but how that would impact tariff itself, we have not yet determined at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Dull. I appreciate your answer. Although I find it lacking with regard to specificity, and this is two items in a row where the co-op doesn't seem to know what the impact of member regulation is going to be clearly. And you're in the middle of talking to your members with regard to whether or not they want to do that, but there's a lot of unanswered questions out there. And so, Mr. Chairman, having said that, I will just say that I am very comfortable with staff's position in this regard, and will be supporting the staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Do any additional commissioners wish to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Mike.
Oh, Commissioner Richard.
Yes. I think maybe the co-op just answered the question, but I was interested to know why, I guess, the timing of these tariff changes, because it does appear under the Rural Broadband and Eastern Shore Act that the co-op would no longer be required to come to the commission to seek changes to tariffs. And so, you know, again, if there's some discrepancies or some differences between the staff position and the co-op position, why not just wait? Why is it important for the co-op to be here today on these items?
I can answer that, Commissioner. This is Sarah Dahl with Chop Tank. It requires a little bit of history coming into this, but Chop Tank is currently under a waiver with respect to customer choice, the technology required to implement customer choice. That waiver expires on July 8th. And as such, we needed to have every aspect of EDI and customer choice completed prior to July 28th, including the tariff. And we're on track to do that.
Okay, I guess I should have just asked, why not just extend the waiver if again, you have a different opinion with the commission?
That was not an appealing option to Chop Tank. So we wanted to become fully compliant prior to the waiver expiring. And we will be sending the commission a final status report to indicate that our customer choice implementation is complete prior to July 28th.
Okay, but the co-op would then be able, again, if the commission does not, I guess, grant the requested language today, just change the way or change the tariff after the conversion. Is that correct?
Well, as I mentioned in my response, O'Donnell, I'm not sure that we've really reached a final determination on the question with respect to the customer choice or supplier choice tariff specifically.
Okay. All right. And for staff, did we ever hear back at all from the supplier community on this issue? I think you indicated in the bug sheet that you have reached out to the suppliers.
So, yeah, I did not. I can give a brief overview of our outreach. So when we received the filed tariff, and actually before that, we told Chop Tank that we wanted to do a remote meeting to allow suppliers to ask questions of Chop Tank, provide feedback through a remote meeting to the proposed edits. Chop Tank did agree to this, and what staff did is we put together an email where we highlighted specific sections of the proposed edits to the tariff that we were seeking feedback on. We included a doodle poll to attempt to pick a time for a meeting. We included the filing and invitation to comment on any other parts. This was sent to the suppliers, the electricity suppliers participating in the Supplier Consolidated Billing Work Group, which has basically all the major electric suppliers participating. RISA is a participant in that. So that was sent to the Supplier Consolidated Billing Work Group electricity supplier members via email. Also, staff members who are coordinating and working in that group asked during the meetings themselves, the remote meetings, multiple times, asked suppliers to respond to staff's specific requests related to this, and multiple follow-up emails were sent. Additionally, staff asked the Energy Analysis and Planning Division for a list of all available electricity supplier contacts. I removed the ones that were also participating in supplier consolidated billing, but I sent the same email invitation with the doodle poll and the specific sections we were asking for feedback on, but did not receive a response. Separately, I did reach out via email to a representative of RISA, and at one point I did receive a response saying he was trying to gauge interest in giving feedback, but I never heard anything further. So we did not, but staff feels it made a significant effort to try and get supplier feedback.
Okay, so with no supplier feedback, I'd just like to understand what the staff position and interest in this issue is. Is it just simply because you'd like uniformity with the other utilities in the state?
Yes, well, they are required. Say again.
If the suppliers don't seem to be interested in this or care to participate, why should we? I guess.
So I don't know if suppliers are interested or not interested in the Chop Tank market. I never heard one way or the other. The tariff does need to be updated to implement retail choice and follow the commission's orders. It does need to be updated to fully implement COMAR 2053. And as we noted in our comment, we do think it is very important to have consistent tariff conditions, what have you, such that, you know, for example, a supplier participating in BG's market, it would be, you know, straightforward for them to expand into, for example, Chop Tank's market. And, you know, we don't yet know the results of the vote for member regulation. So, you know, staff treated this like any other tariff revision.
Okay. But assuming conversion, I mean, does staff read of the law that was passed, the Eastern Shore Act of 2020, that the co-op would no longer be required to come to the commission for changes in tariff?
I'm going to refer to Mr. Dean for that question.
This is Mike Dean for staff. Our review of the statute, I would say that that's an open question because the statute does not clearly state that the cooperative would have to come before the commission. And as such, if they did not, I'm not sure what our response would be to that. However, they do have to follow the statute. The section of statutes in the corporate and associations article list of statutes that the cooperative has to follow does list the overall section incorporating customer choice. So they would have to follow the statute. It's just not clear who gets to make the decision as to how they're following it.
Okay. All right. I guess with the information, I do want to be, I guess, respectful of the desire of the co-op to convert to self-regulation and the support of the legislature. But if there isn't any strong opposition to the staff language, I feel like I'm in a position then to go ahead and support the staff position today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I move that we accept Chop Tank Electric Cooperatives Incorporated's revised electricity supplier coordination tariff as revised by staff in its comments dated July 1st, 2020, and as further revised in its buck sheet on July 13th, 2020, and direct Chop Tank Electric Cooperative Incorporated to file clean copies of the tariff revisions with an effective date of July 28th, 2020. The vote begins with Commissioner Richard.
I vote aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved with no additional matters on today's docket. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.